who beat me here. I see you're all just ever curious to discover what the companions found within Detester's lair. Did they come across Valenrad's friend Holifer, that paladin whose horse was found outside? Or will they meet the demon god Nolzid himself, the Detester? Oh my. A drow cult that worships a god of indiscriminate loathing. I can only imagine what nightmarish circumstances befell them down there. Just kidding. I've seen it all. In fact, I uncovered this very mug from the lair not long ago. A beautiful, twisted piece, isn't it? So, would you like to know what became of the companions? Very good. Then I give you part 2 of the tale of Detester's Lair. So let's see what we have here. Yes, it looks like Archmage Thurset briefed them on their assassination mission where they would seek to eliminate the Archelites, the cult leaders of the Lech. And then they traveled along the Windhouse mountainscape and came across Holifer's horse. And now they descend down into the Lech Nexus. The party descended the steps into darkness, nearly sightless. When they reached the bottom, Raya casted magical lights that popped like silent fireworks to reveal a round room with 3 pylons rising out of the floor, each with a large round button on top. Beyond them were 2 closed doors. The faint light also revealed the statues of men frozen in perpetual fear as they reeled against a long-gone foe.
Be careful with those lights. We don't want to go fishing for the creatures of the depths,
warned Lucia. Valenrad held his shield aloft and counted every step forward.
They've been frozen,
spoke Raya.
Petrified,
said Retribution, correcting her.
I don't envy their state.
They can still be dispelled by a bishop, but not until our mission is complete.
Yes. Now how do we know what each of these buttons do?
Let's not do anything rash. I don't want to end up like these sorry fellas.
A creaking sound emanated from the end of the room, and each of the companions whipped to find Lucia standing before one of the doors. It was open.
I just thought the doors might have been unlocked, and they are. Don't fall prey to overthinking.
The party joined the warlock to discover halls that led to the right, left, and forward. The forwardmost path appeared to be the main hallway. Reflective obsidian floors made it appear as though the ground beneath were an infinite abyss. Several drow guards stood down the hall, guarding a large round door at the end. To the party's left and right were narrow halls lit by flickering torchlight. Chanting voices echoed down the hall to the right, while the left passage was dead silent.
I'll bet on the silent way.
Me too,
spoke Raya, swallowing. The party proceeded down the hallway until they came to a door on their right and carefully pushed it open to behold a small room where a motionless man sat against a wall with his head slumped downwards. He wore a blue cape and a tabard with a symbol of a minecart emanating with beams of light.
That's Holifer,
spoke Valenrad aghast.
Oh my goodness. That's your friend,
whispered Ubi. He began making his way towards the figure when Valenrad placed a hand to Ubi's chest, stopping him dead in his tracks.
Wait, he's wearing the Veldsminian cape. Holifer would never wear it, especially on campaign. He always said it only served to hinder his movement. This is a trick.
Illusion.
Spoke Lucia, shutting the door.
One of the Lech's favorite forms of trickery.
The party continued down the narrow hall, which flickered and flashed in the dim yellow torchlight. They came upon 2 mahogany doors embedded at the frames with heavy nails.
I think I have a plan.
Ubi removed a toy figurine from his pocket. He wound it up as the group slowly cracked open the door and then released it into the room. The little automaton walked quietly in to reveal a banquet table where sat 2 dark elves clad in blackened armor. They walked under the table, and while the knights were distracted by the toy, the party barged in and unleashed a magical barrage upon their enemy. The Black Knights seized their flails, laying beside them, and whirled them in a ferocious and gripping tempest. But thankfully, the group had caught their enemy off guard. They destroyed them with a fierce vigor.
Well, that worked like a charm.
Spoke Ubi, pocketing the figurine. The party searched the room and found a long hall with many different rooms filled with biscuits and rice. Steps led down past it, connecting to a freezing hall where slabs of meat hung on hooks.
I say we sleep in one of the storage rooms for the night.
Agreed. But first, let's get rid of these bodies.
The party found a balcony that opened to the outside and overlooked a deep ravine. They dumped the bodies into the abyss, who became one with the blackness below. As the group headed back inside, Ubi decided to linger a while longer. There wasn't a soul in sight on those sharp cliffs, not a bird chirped, not a mouse did scurry. Only a forlorn castle stood in the distance. Its cold black walls sent shivers through his body, as if he were leaning right upon it.
Time to get some sleep now, Ubi.
The gnome soon returned to meet his companions in the storage room, and they bedded down for the night. Ubi was to be the final watchman, taking the shift just before dawn, what they only presumed to be dawn in that cavernous lair. As the gnome was sitting just outside the door, he caught sight of a figure at the end of the hall. It wore a smiling metal mask and was adorned deceptively in priest's robes. It descended the steps into the freezer. For some reason, Ubi found himself rising to his feet and tiptoeing down the hall, down the steps, and into the meat freezer himself. Huge slabs of meat obscured his vision from beyond, and he found himself pushing through them one by one. A great fear overcame him as he became surrounded by the carcasses. He began pushing through them more and more frantically until he had reached the cold stone wall at the end of the freezer.
Where did he go? Where did he go?
Ubi then turned around and walked straight into the leg of a tall, dark figure. He squeaked and recoiled in fear.
Ubi, what all is the matter?
The gnome looked up to find Valenrad standing there with the rest of the party behind him.
A masked man was down here, Valenred. I think he was one of the acolytes, but I'm not sure. But I am sure that I saw him.
Valenrad knelt down beside him.
I believe you, Ubi.
More illusion magic. We stick close to one another from now on. Nobody strays.
The 5 Red Tower members proceeded quietly out of the banquet room and down a hall to the right, which led them before an intricately locked round door. The same door they had seen at the other end of the temple upon entering, but now they were before it.
It reads, "To the upper tier."
There have to be instructions on how to crack the code. Let's keep looking around.
The party continued moving down the hallway to their right until they came to a lumber storage room. A flight of stairs wound upwards. Step by quiet step they climbed, passing a floor with nearly a dozen sleeping drow. The 5 companions continued yet upwards until they reached a trap door. They slowly lifted it and peeked through. They beheld a domed room where a disheveled straw bed lay against a wall. 2 corbelled doors led out to a balcony where burned a pit of embers. After discerning no signs of life, they pushed the hatch open completely and began inspecting the room.
Finally, air!
Breathed Graya, pushing the balcony doors open and leaning on the banister. She beheld a vast array of barren cliffs eroding into a network of abyssal fissures. The silhouettes of structures could be seen on the mountainside, and one of them, she reckoned, even looked like a church. The rest of the party inspected the room. Above a dresser made out of charcoal was a mantelpiece that held an assortment of severed body parts, each encased in a jar of some kind of green liquid. Valenrad grimaced.
They're trophies for whomever dwells in this godforsaken loft.
Ubi shuddered and then turned, and because of his short stature, he caught sight of several bags laying under a bed. He withdrew them and noticed that each bag had a tag with the word Ursi written on them.
Ursti, huh? So that's the name of the villain who lives here.
Must be one of the other Archelites that the Archmage was talking about.
Ubi opened the bag to find nothing but sand within. He turned the tag over to find the words, "The key to Detester" on the back. He gazed back at the burning fire, grabbed a handful of sand from within, and tossed it in. The flames turned green and began to rise into a pillar. A terrible grunting voice like that of a man sick with rage began to speak from beyond the flames.
Only second of Archelites mended the razor. Does trust he as keeper of key to his bridge, which remains raised near every the time. The bridge that leads over Dead Gorge and down into Death Chamber.
Bridge?
Uttered Raya.
That looks like a raised bridge over there.
She pointed out over one of the gorges, before which a drawbridge was raised.
Yet I doubt we'll be able to ask nicely for the gate key from this Menlid.
What do the other bags say, Ubi?
Spoke Valenrad, grasping out one of his hands. It was labeled Ursi's lock combination to the upper tier. Without consulting the group, Valenrad tossed a handful into the fire. It scorched and blazed against him, causing him to fall backwards onto the bed.
It burns!
He muttered in a fierce whisper. As the group was pouring their canteens on him to cool down his searing armor, a voice began again from the fire.
Be I the curator of the lower tier. I did create a lock combination on the door to the upper tier that only I knows it.
The voice continued to speak, giving away a most complicated log code. Thankfully, Lucia was there with a notebook on which to write it down.
Easy as that.
Next time, we'll let one of the wizards operate the fairy dust.
Spoke Retribution, giving the paladin a hand to his feet. They descended back down the flight of stairs until they reached the ground floor. Valenrad stopped and looked around at all the lumber in the storage room.
We set it ablaze.
Spoke Valenrad.
It's time we reap some vengeance for the fallen.
Agreed.
Muttered Retribution. Ubi watched as the party ignited a fire, and he saw the embodiment of the burning anger within their souls. The flames reflected in his wide and blinking eyes.
Come on, Ubi, let's go!
Spoke Raya, tugging his shoulder. He broke from his trance and continued after the group. They came to the door to the upper tier and adjusted the series of locks according to Lucia's notes. Gears shifted within the great round bulwark, and it opened to a tall, square room. The party quickly entered and closed the door behind them, and then realized that they were in a room with many different staircases weaving like serpents all throughout. There was a door built into the wall high above, and it was comprised of interlocking stone teeth and a single doorknob protruding from its center. And up the twisting steps did they climb, a dreamlike ascent onto the throne of a dreadful king. Ubi swallowed.
One step at a time.
And there it is. Part 2 of the tale of Detester's Lair. And up those steps they go to the upper tier. What lurks before them? What is waiting for them? Well, you're just going to have to tune into part 3 to discover what that might be. Till that time, good night, my friends.